All this crypto got me lit. I watch it double with some days. People come in and they fade, but this is the life that I made. Watch it go out, they come by the double. When I go down, I see you in trouble. The market is tricky, we gotta stay humble, but don't think this is my first time in the jungle. All this crypto got me lit. I watch it double with some days. People come in and they fade, but this is the life that I made. Watch it go out, they come by the double. When I go down, I see you in trouble. The market is tricky, we gotta stay humble, but don't think this is my first time in the jungle.
Welcome to Live with KacyCExcel, your lead to excellence. My name is Rida Chohan. I'm here with my co-host Kacy Chohan, the owner and producer of Live with KacyCExcel. Today we have here a very eminent guest talking about crypto live, Peter. He will introduce himself and talk about a very different topic. But before that, let me introduce Kacy Chohan.
Hey everybody, welcome to Live with KacyCExcel, your lead to excellence, with of course my 3Ds: diligence, dedication and determination, along with Almighty's grace. This is the new world, of course, after COVID. These are the times we need to understand these times and bring about that change. To understand that very change and develop and evolve, we've got Peter Ratnikov here. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you for having me.
Wow, Peter is an entrepreneur. Peter is a consultant. And for newbies like us, we need to learn the terms and understand something like cryptocurrency. Oh, it's difficult to pronounce. Digital currency, virtual currency. Wow, Peter. And then cryptography, blockchain. Then I've got virtual tokens. I really don't know what all this means. So start with your introduction, Peter, and tell us more.
Okay, so why we use the word cryptocurrency? Because most of the world already uses digital currency, like the Canadian dollar, the American dollar. Most G20 places in the world have a digitized version of their dollar.
Wow.
Most people no longer keep a bunch of cash in their walls, like in some places, but not in North America so much, right?
Wow.
So when we talk about cryptocurrency, we're talking about specifically Bitcoin and these new crypto assets like Ethereum, which was the second major one, but there's thousands of them and hundreds of very good ones out right now. Mm-hmm. So the premise to understand the difference between the mainstream currencies that are digital and this one is there was a problem solved. It was called digital rarity. Everything on the planet that was digital before Bitcoin specifically was able to be copied. That's why most of the currency that the governments make and the ones we use are centralized with encryption, things of that nature. But if somebody wanted to launch their own currency online, it would be copied 1,000, 1,000,000 times, and it wouldn't work. So there's been lots of attempts in the 90s, even early 2000s, of making digital currencies that belong to the internet and not to a state, but they always failed because there was always a issue with solving the technological issue of how do you make something digital and rare. So in 2009, October 30th or 31st, some group of people or a coder or whatever the case may be came out with a concept, which was a white paper, explaining how this could be fulfilled. And there wasn't new technology. They just put together a bunch of existing technologies in a new way with added some more details. And this was a conceptual concept of making digital rarity. And for 2 months, nobody took action in the space. So what happened after that was January 3rd, 2010, he decided to, or the group, whoever the details are, decided to launch this digital rarity. And the first year was actually worth $0, $0, It was a proof of concept where a few dozen coders started mining it on their computer, which means verifying this computer code. It grew to hundreds, thousands. By the time it grew to hundreds of thousands, it got its first value, which was a penny based on a funny story. It's called a pizza story. There's actually a Bitcoin holiday because of this. And somebody was mining so many of these. It was such a closed circuit, had no value. Someone's like, hey, I live in England. I'll buy someone out for 2 pieces of pizza. For a pizza, give someone 10,000 bitcoins. So someone in Boston in US decided, say, I'll give you 10,000 bitcoins, ordered him a pizza in England, and that was the first famous transaction to make Bitcoin worth 1 penny in 2010 or early 2011. So digital rarity is the difference between this technology as opposed to just digital assets you think about when it comes to Canadian dollar, things of that nature.
Awesome. That sounds really interesting, eh? With the pandemic, we were forbidden to use cash, and we were our very credit cards were much more and further in effect. But then too, there was this thing, we had to wear those gloves and use those credit cards. But with what I'm hearing from you, the virtual currency, everybody. So you really don't want to have that cash in your wallet. You really don't want to have those cards in your wallet, carrying those all around with the very idea of getting it lost or getting some kind of contagious virus on it. And it's good if you have something on the internet, just a click and then you pay. Am I correct?
Yeah, I would go beyond that because most people that have access to internet could do things with their regular currency. It's something for the people like right now that don't have access to modern banking. There's lots of places in the world where the only way you can save is through cash. Wow. And even if you still save in your local currency, it's usually devalued. It's meaning that there's more and more, and some places it's hard to get real estate, hard to get real assets. So now people, even in the most remote places, with just access to a cell phone with internet 1 hour once a week, could all of a sudden take a piece of their savings and put it into a digital rarity, meaning a digital asset. And this can change the whole world because people that don't have access to modern banking, like we take online shopping and everything we do online for granted, even email transfers. There's a very small part of the world, probably less than 1 billion people who could send email transfers to each other. But with this technology, we can interact digitally and we can express ourselves on the micro levels coming, and right now already on just a dollar level and basic interaction. It opens the door for people that don't have access to this digital forms of interaction, and even more importantly, people who didn't have a chance to save in assets because maybe real estate was unreachable. It's hard to get educated in your local stock market in some cases, but if you could put it in something that you know has been going up in value almost double every year on average, minus there's cycles we could talk about, this is empowering to people all around the world.
So I do remember that once Amazon.com has been quite famous, Amazon.ca, we've got Wish, we've got Bay, we've got Hudson, and we were just reluctant to shop that thing online with the fear of our credit card number getting lost or hacked. And with this pandemic in place, we actually did started lots of online shopping, people sitting all around the world, they were online shopping. So this very cryptocurrency, how does it actually work, Peter?
So to get on the technical side where I'm going to lose some people, but just so they understand, we're going to go through all different variations and topics here, right? So for example, I'm going to use the music example. When people start downloading music on the internet, there was something called Napster. That was started by an individual out of a certain place, and it grew very big. Eventually it was able to be shut down because people that was affecting the music business could come to one place and shut it down. When that broke off, there's 5, 10 other things, LimeWire, a bunch of other names that not coming to my head, that distributed the music, but they were still the same concept. There were still buildings, individual groups of people or running these details. And then they all got shut down as well. Eventually something came along called Pirate Bay. And it's ran on thousands, millions of people's servers around the world voluntarily. And since Pirate Bay came into existence, I would say this is one of the first decentralized technologies that worked before cryptocurrency. It's a way that you can't stop it, because to stop it, you would have to hack 500,000 computers or whatever the details would be. And because people are choosing to let this technology flow on their computer by choice, that's what distributed this way of downloading. So same concept with Bitcoin. The issue it solved was, how do we make digital rarity? I keep explaining this because it's important. We're going to get into details more about it after. So people, when they started mining it, it started just on regular computers. You could take your regular laptop, your usual desktop, and you'd be mining full blocks of Bitcoin, which in the 2000 10, 11, 12 days was 50 Bitcoins every 10 minutes. And then as this actually took off and it started showing value and people started taking this more as an investment and a movement and taking it more seriously, all of a sudden it went from household people using laptops and computers to people building custom rigs with all these extra computer cards, and that evolutionized to whole factories around the world right now that have data centers filled with this processing power of computer to verify this network. And it's not based on any one place. It's literally distributed all around the world in probably half the countries or more. You have like operations that look like big factories filled with computers, and that's the actual hardware side or the technical side that's keeping this digital rarity possible. So since 2009, there hasn't been a single hack on the actual main network of this technology since it started.
Awesome, that really sounds interesting. So what are the types of cryptocurrencies and what are the differences between them?
So Bitcoin is the original one, and it's the one to be proven because it hasn't had no technical issues for 10 years plus. So for any newcomer into the space, you should start off with Bitcoin. Like don't jump the gun and don't go looking for things that, because they seem like they have more numbers you can get for a certain part. Start off learning Bitcoin. It's learning the basics. Like if you're learning to use the internet, you would start off with an email account with search engine, things of that nature. Don't bypass the basic things, which is Bitcoin. So if you're going to store your digital wealth, keep the big portion of it in Bitcoin specifically. Now, when we get into other ones, there was about a handful of other coins that were out before Ethereum, maybe even a couple hundred on a small cap level, that were not so relevant. There was a few good ones, Litecoin, Monero in the early days. But when we had this one called Ethereum that actually started off with two of the 3 or 4 founders out of Toronto, it became the second biggest coin to date now. So if Bitcoin is worth about $1 trillion, a little bit less these days, like the whole market cap, Ethereum's almost half of that. And the difference is Bitcoin is made to make simple contracts to interact as finance or money. Whereas Ethereum is building almost a new layer or a new internet. It's made to be able to have smart contracts that can be programmed to do much more complicated things than just interacting financially, dollars and cents. You can start building applications and browsers and apps and things of that nature. And essentially it's building a decentralized internet 3.0.
Wow, this is so much interesting, and you got to be really educated on that. I have this feeling a normal person really can't really delve into it until you get that training. You really get, you understand what it is, and then you start investing in it. Am I correct?
Well, it's one of those things where it's gonna unfold naturally. Like people that understood what the internet was gonna do in the late 80s and 90s, they were well ahead of their time. And people would say, oh, like this is above my head, but it's about making it so user friendly that you don't even realize you're using this technology. So already today, this technology is much easier to use now than it was 5 years ago. But there is some complications that to someone that's new to the space, it's understandable why it's so different, and there's few little not just complications, it's a new habit you have to form. So forming a new habit is uncomfortable. Just like if you've never used the internet, used encyclopedias your whole life, and you went to the local library and you talked to friends and you watched maybe like programming and television to get your information, all of a sudden you can go on this new World Wide Web. It was a leap, right? So this technology is going to be used by everybody. It's going to be ingrained in technologies that you're using. Products are going to be verified on it, and eventually there's going to be apps that are going to have this technology behind it, but you're going to be using it just by click and not realizing it. So it's not about letting it go over your head. If you want to take action now, it's going to get you ahead. Like if somebody that took action in the internet in the 90s and build businesses or at least learn how to use it, got involved, I'm sure they're doing much better off than someone that was ignoring the technology trend. So we're going more and more digital. And as long as we're going more and more digital, this technology is not going away. We're all going to be using it in our daily lives.
Okay, Peter, I am a beginner, all right? I don't know the language. I am not educated. I hardly know anything about the laptop and the internet. How can I use it? How would you help us? Help anybody who's just at the beginner level, unacquainted of everything about technology. Is it for them?
If you don't know anything about technology, most likely you're probably going to get close to retirement at this point in your life, because most people are already starting to make their living more in the digital world than physical if you study the trends.
Okay.
And coming 10, 20, 30 years from now, the amount of people that will be making their daily income from the physical world will be very few. Almost majority of all income will come from the digital world.
Really interesting.
So people that don't know how to use email yet and haven't used the basic technologies, maybe this technology is not for them.
Yeah.
But if somebody is using basic technologies like email, it's not much more complicated than that.
Right.
So what I would recommend any new timer to do is actually open or download an app, or if you just have a computer, download a Bitcoin wallet, which just means like a Bitcoin account.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
That's the first step.
Okay.
Then you get someone like myself, or you go to an event, or you figure you have an ATM nearby you, or you have a local broker, and you experience the technology. Put in $5, $10. If you're in a different place in the world, whatever your local currency means, you could put a fraction in and experience this technology. That's the first step. Realize that you can now interact and feel the technology firsthand. Once you do that, you realize the power of being able to interact anybody online in the world instantly, right? And as we're building on other layers, like for example, Lightning Network is going to build payment processors where after you do a transaction with somebody once, whether they be in India, whether they be in England, Australia, China, doesn't matter. Once you build that interaction channel once on the Lightning Network, it's free to send interactions. And you could send a fraction of a penny, you could send $100,000, anything in between, and it's going to cost you nothing. And this form of interaction was never possible. Like right now, if I go and I travel, let's say India, and make some amazing friends, and like want to, like, I give them whatever I can locally, whether it be clothes, whatever dollars or currency I have. But now I leave back to America. We're connected, or Canada, I should say. And we're connected on Facebook, Instagram, whatever the details may be. But financially, I don't really have an option unless I'm going to commit going to like another unusual place like a Western Union, or send a bank transfer where they may not even be able to have bank transfers. So there's all these complications for me with a friend I made, or let's say they have a business and I want to, let's say, you know what, I want to support your business and I want to interact with you around the world. This was very difficult before this technology. And not to say we have all the issues solved now, we're actually working on it daily. And people can interact with someone. Now I can send someone 10 cents and they could give a friend of mine in the local town whatever their business is or whatever their service is, and people could interact globally for no cost, which has never been an option on the planet in the history we could study.
I really love hearing that people can interact globally at no cost. We live in North America. We are in Canada at this moment, and of course, I'm sure everybody out there would be interested. How do we save on taxes, Peter? Using cryptocurrency?
I wouldn't say. I would say if the goal is to save on taxes, is to get a very good accountant and bookkeeper. For example, I was watching some information today. There was several, not just one. There was 3, 4, 5 plus billionaires that how they structure because they have good bookkeepers, accountant, and they know how to play the game of taxes, they actually made negative income, and they actually got stimulus checks. So in the US, there were several billionaires that got mailed the 600, 1200, whatever the number was, stimulus checks in the US. So to avoid paying taxes is actually more financial education, where it's a different form of financial education than learning Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. So there's lots of advantages of getting financially ahead with Bitcoin in the space we're in. And you could avoid taxes with cash, with Bitcoin, with many things, but I wouldn't say that's the main purpose of this technology. This technology is made to interact around the world with no friction, with no complications, right? And it's more of a medium of exchange where you're using it like that. And if you're storing it as an investment, you have to know all your local rules and laws and details. And that's why having a professional doesn't have to be someone expensive. It just has to be someone that knows what they're doing, that can structure your company a certain way or your personal finance to minimize taxes, if that's the
Peter
goal.
has really made a very tough thing so easy for all of us. We'll just change a bit from the topic and know more about Peter. I'm sure Rida has questions.
So what is the difference between Bitcoin and stock market? Because I know many people like to invest in stock market, but they're also very scared to invest in stock market because you lose more than you make. So what is the difference between Bitcoin and stock market?
Well, that's a powerful statement. You said that people lose more than they make.
Of course they do lose more, and they're like, okay, let me spend, let me invest $10,000, and how much I'm making in return? 1,000, 2,000? Depends on your percentage. But Bitcoin is a little different than stock market.
It's different in the sense of it's a technology. So you could look at Bitcoin as a technology company that's distributed around the world, but it's different than stocks because stocks are a traditional model built in the traditional system. So it has its limitations, like it opens and closes at certain hours. For when it comes to getting into the companies at the best time, which would be the initial public offering, in where we live, let's say North America and Canada specifically, if you don't have $1 million liquid, or if you haven't made $250,000 4 years in a row, they say that you are not educated enough or you don't qualify to invest in these opportunities where you get the biggest returns. If you see the prices of companies like Uber and companies that even just came out recently, Airbnb, things of that nature, if you see their IPO price as opposed to when the average person on the public market could buy it, the people that got in on the IPO have already made 5, 10, sometimes significantly more of their money. So when it comes to cryptocurrency, why people, I think it's more fair for the planet, is now it's not up to regulations and an institution that's a little bit out of date to decide what I can invest in. If I want to invest my hard capital into something that's very risky in the cryptocurrency space, but it might have just launched an hour ago, or it might be launching a week from now, and I'm signing up to an email list and they're letting me know that, you know what, the purchase is going to happen in this block of time. And if I choose to invest in a company early on, it's going to pay a lot more dividends. Now, where it becomes dangerous, just like the stock market, if you're not doing the right research and you're just investing based on someone else's opinion or just because you think you might get lucky, then you could lose a lot of finances. And this is applied even more so in cryptocurrency. But why I like our space is our market is 24 hours, it doesn't close, anybody could get involved. You don't have to ask permission. Essentially, to be involved in the traditional markets, if you can't know your customer, KYC is what it's called, it's going to be very difficult for you unless you're using Bitcoin. So let's say that's not an option for you to actually own stock. So now you're talking about 1 billion, maybe 2 billion, maximum 2.5 billion people out of 7 billion people on the planet that could even buy stocks, right? What about the other 4.5 billion people?
So who's the person or the entity, I would say, who's responsible to control the cryptocurrency, and who's the one who's actually having a close eye on where is all this Bitcoins going?
So that's what I mean. It's why makes it beautiful. It's mathematics, right? Mathematics is what secures the network. It's a computer code based on cryptographic math. And there's a network of computers around the world that's agreeing to voluntarily participate in this network. So there's not no one person, not no one company, not no individual. Because if that were the case, Bitcoin would have been shut down a long time ago. The reason it's still around today and why it's worth as much as it is because it can't be shut down in any one specific place. There is no one specific group of people that could influence it to the point that it could shut down the network. There is, of course, like a team of coders that have influence on small details where we're going, but most of them are actually working to better the network. And there is miners that could, I guess, obstruct mining, but if you invested in the infrastructure of this technology, for you, you're going to get rewarded a lot more working with it. Whereas if you channel your technology to work against it, it's going to actually cost you a lot more. So there's no incentive for anybody on the planet that has this technology that's powering it to not go with the mathematical equation. If you want to go against it, compromise it, it's going to cost you so much more resources for so much less results. So it's kind of a perfect ecosystem in itself because it's based on math and computer code that can't be changed. And this is, again, going back to the digital rarity, why it's so important, because it's locked in and it's verified around the world. So it's a locked in computer code based on mathematics, as opposed to most currencies that we have, right? For example, the American dollar was inflated 25% the last 18 months. So that's 38% of all the currency that's ever existed has been created. People are making those choices, and it's a small group of people that's deciding on behalf of everybody else. Where this is a mathematical equation that you choose to participate in or you don't, right? So if you don't, you just don't use Bitcoin, you're not involved. But if you do, you're not going to be able to influence it. Whether you buy 10%, 1% of the whole Bitcoin network doesn't mean now you're going to be able to bully and change things within it. Now you just have that much more of this digital rarity.
And who are the people who actually buy Bitcoin, and who are the people who actually make the ROI on Bitcoin?
So in the early days, it was like cypherpunks, like people that were like cryptographic coders, things of that nature. They're the ones that started mining it originally. So that was when it was worth zero and it went to worth pennies and eventually got to like $1, things of that nature. This, I would say, was the main community. Once you started it jumping from, let's say, I think it went from all the way to $1 to 6 cents, or from, I know, it went from $30 to $6. Once it started getting to those numbers in 2012, I would start saying you would start seeing early fintech entrepreneurs. Like the mainstream businessman wasn't aware of it, but someone that was in technology, is their job to stay on top of trends. So all of a sudden the people that are not just coders, not people like that, maybe not even know how to code anything, but their business is involved in technology, all of a sudden they seen the opportunity, they seen the possibilities because they trust their coder friends and business partners and employees, whatever the case may be. And they've been telling them now for years, there's this new technology, it's going to change everything. It's encrypted like we've never seen before. So now you have people in the fintech space that started pushing it. So that trickled slowly, all the way to 2015. I would say that was, you started maybe 14, 15, you started having institutions, but smaller institutional players, and they didn't want to publicly speak about it. So fast forwarding, let's say 5-6 years into the technology, we're in 2016, people are still not being vocal. So now you just have aggressive entrepreneurs that are risk takers. You have people that they influenced around them, maybe friends and family, business partners, associates involved. And then around 2017, you start seeing big corporations publicly announcing that we're buying Bitcoin on our asset books.
Now talking about risk, because every business comes with a risk, asset and liability. So what are the risks of not getting your return on like investments? What's like the biggest risk in Bitcoin in comparison to stock market?
I would say the biggest risk is this new curve of learning this new technology, meaning that if you make a mistake in the world of stocks, and that's why they know your customer, that you could call somebody, there's somebody to help you, guide you through if you forgot your password, things of that nature. The biggest horror story that happens in Bitcoin and most cryptocurrency as a whole now, but I would say especially in the early days, people would get Bitcoins for dollars, hundreds of dollars, not knowing their value, forgetting about it, having it on their computer, putting it away on a place where they forgot the password, and whether that's 1, 10, or 0.1 Bitcoin years later, which has big value financially now, there's no one that can help you. So this is the new technological difficulty that people have to step up and control their own finances. There's no one that can save you here. So that is the biggest danger, I would say, is not getting educated how to properly secure your device. More so the biggest issue in this day where we're talking 2021, there's a lot of people that will tell you that you have cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin, and it'll look like it on their front office, back office, but it's not actually yours. So understanding how to actually own Bitcoin that you possess would be like the equivalent of, I don't lose people, like owning real Bitcoin is like owning physical gold. But there's lots of people that say, you know what? Why don't you, instead of holding physical gold, hold the paper version, right? So people will want you to say, you know what? We'll hold your Bitcoin for you, and we'll just give you this other version that you can on a screen. That's what you don't want to do. So the biggest risk is actually taking the action of learning this technology and then applying it and then not making the mistake of losing it. And then the other thing is, it's all human error, I would say, is not giving away your Bitcoins to somebody that sounds too good to be true. These day and age, people want a lot of results for nothing sometimes. Yeah. And when somebody tells you I could double your money, Bitcoin, whatever the case may be, every week or month, Well, ask them, how is this logical, right? And then people will just take actual Bitcoin that they own, which is good, and send it to a platform like that. Those are probably the biggest two risks, in my opinion, for someone that's been in the space 7+ years, is people losing passwords and people voluntarily sending their valuable asset to a place that's not secure or actually has bad intentions.
Yeah. On your profile, there's a quote. It says, "Love the life you live and live the life you love." Bob Marley. Life. What is that life which you love to live, Peter? And what's your message out there for those people? How to really love that life, to live fully?
I think it's all about like human experiences, right? What people don't realize is obviously you have to work on yourself. Health is your first wealth. So if you're waking up and not feeling good, do what you can. Maybe there's some places in the world it's harder to get medicine, but there's meditation and breathing techniques that are free. There's teachers that you could access through via internet or maybe locally around you that could teach you natural healing melodies, proper eating habits, right? No matter where you are. So health is number one wealth. Once you can do that is when your body's healthy, having a healthy mind, which has been very difficult for people in the last 2 years with the circumstances we've been in. But don't underestimate how important it is to have don't lie to yourself. That's the worst thing that people that have hard time in life, they say, I'm gonna go to the gym tomorrow. And then they don't. Tell your brain I might.
I'm one of them.
So these are the things that the first wealth. And then people think that it's about having all these numbers in a screen. Okay, you could have a nice house, nice car, private jet. Let's imagine all that. You have all that, right? For the people that can't imagine it, just play along for a minute, right? Once you have all that, what do? Do you play sports? Do you spend time with family? Do you read? Do you go running? Most of those things you're waiting to do to have money, you could actually do now, right? Maybe if you have front row seats to a concert, but you could probably get back row seats if you're saying you like concerts. If you're into sports, you could volunteer or play sports. If you like to just spend time with nature.
Peter, doesn't content come with achievement?
Does it what?
Content, the satisfaction that I have that thing. It comes through achievement. Because until I've achieved, I won't be content. I'll be restless and anxious. I want it all the time. That makes us restless.
I think always having constant goals you're working on, like someone with no purpose, I agree with, will get lost very quickly. And you see people who have worked a long stretch or have done business and they choose to retire and 6 months, 18 months later, they have to go back. It's not natural for them not to have a purpose. But to be chasing goals are good and always working towards them, but to say you have to have $5,000 by next Tuesday and then you need to have another $5,000 by the following 2 weeks or a month after that, and if you don't get it, you get yourself down, that could get you down a very dangerous path where nothing will be enough, because once you reach that and then you go make a goal of 10,000, you reach that, you're never enjoying your life. Now I need to reach $100,000, $1 million, $10 million, and no matter what number you hit, you don't achieve happiness. So happiness starts with just gratitude, being thankful for whatever you have, the little health you have, the little mental clarity you have, and do the things you love. Don't make it an excuse. Don't wait in your life to do things, like whatever that case may be. Everybody has different hobbies, different things they love to do. You don't need a lot of resources. You'll be a lot more comfortable if you have a lot more money in a screen, but that doesn't mean you're going to be happy. I know just as many people who are very depressed, who are very wealthy, whether it be from traditional, from crypto money now. I wouldn't say that the happiest people around me are the people that have the most money in the screen. One has something to do with the other. It makes you a lot more comfortable, but true happiness is something else.
So you also belong from IWB, right? Immigrant Women in Business, Svetlana is the CEO. This very organization, I know there are lots of business people come in, we see smiles, we see happiness, we see that lady running around, helping, boosting, the moral encouragement, the support, and of course finances as well. So with that specific organization, which is IWB, Immigrant Women in Business, almost in every other cities, how do you really see yourself helping people out there and then bringing that positive influence on others to keep positive?
So yeah, so right now I share my message with whoever, wherever I can, anyone willing to listen, anyone with an intellectual conversation that want to have any time. I'm always open, excited, whether that be right when I wake up, whether that be midday calls, events like this, late night I can have some drinks, be out in public, and all of a sudden, if somebody asks me the right questions, all of a sudden we're talking about this technology that's changing lives all around the world. So,
and everybody, Peter is a DJ, so tell us more, Peter. Is it your hobby or is it your profession?
no, I did it full time for almost a decade before I got into cryptocurrencies. So,
oh, wow.
So there was even times where I was getting deposits. So I'm saying people taking right action, right? The number is not the relevant point. It's the action I took. So when I realized there's this new possibility to change the world with Bitcoin, and when I was still DJing full time,
wow.
I would take corporate deposits that were, let's say, $600, and Bitcoin was $500-600 at the time.
Oh.
I would take a whole Bitcoin. By the time I do the gig 9 months later, when the event comes around, or 6 months later,
wow.
Bitcoin's doubled in price. And all of a sudden, I've made more off my deposit than I have the second payment coming in. And it's like, these are the actions that people could take now anywhere in the world, where it's like, as opposed to, let's say you have 100 of your local currency, next year you're probably going to be able to buy the same or a little bit less with that same 100.
Yeah.
But if you're able to put it somewhere where, yeah, there's a chance it might be worth 50 or 80, but if you do the statistics since its existence, minus a few bad years that are cyclical, all of a sudden, let's say your money does double. So now you have 200 buying power. This is very powerful for the average person around the world. And then again, emphasizing how important it is to interact digitally. Like, I had a lot of restrictions as a DJ because people were grandfathered into YouTube. Some people were allowed to copyright infringe and newer people were not. This is not a very fair playing ground. So even expressing myself musically was very difficult with the technology in the space we're in now, because there's so much limitations and there's not clarity. It's not like mathematics. With this technology that we're in, as NFTs get more and more popular, as we have search engines and more infrastructure built in the space, there will be a future in a few months, years, much less than a decade from now, where I'll be able to do a live DJ mix once every week. And no matter what anybody says, it's going to be there where people can see it, right?
Yeah.
And if people want to, like someone like me will probably give away most of my donations, but anyone could donate from anywhere around the world.
Yeah.
So that's an example of me. But now anyone could do that. Somebody in the poorest countries could borrow their friend's phone and watch their uncle or dad or a friend live stream, record them performing on the street, and all of a sudden anyone on the planet could donate pennies, nickels, fractions of pennies, or big amounts to these people. Imagine how much more ambition that's going to create. And like we said, doing what you love. So if what you love is knitting, well, now you could have a camera recording yourself knitting, make it into NFT, proving that you made it from here, and now you could present this to the world. If your passion is writing, there's now going to be access for people to pay you. Instead of buying and publishing a book, you could, or just posting for free online, you could build a following through these platforms that are online. But now you could actually get paid fractions of pennies, and anyone can, not just the billion people or 2 billion people that have access now. The whole world will have access to these concepts and technologies that weren't a possibility till very recently.
Honestly speaking, I am really excited. You just have to sit on the side of the screen, educate yourself, train bit, get some experience, and start playing on it. I would say playing, because when you start investing and making money, I'm going to ask Rida, you being the youth, I am excited. You being the youth, I know you're very practical, I know you're very realistic. Would you like to invest on Bitcoins, Rida?
It almost depends on my risk assessment, because as you know, Bitcoin has not got a lot of awareness. Specifically what I've seen, like, people know what Bitcoin stands for, like B stands for Bitcoin, but what is really Bitcoin, right? People don't know that. But I think there are more risks in getting into it because of the awareness part of it. But if you have people like Peter who tell you what really Bitcoin is and how much you can make in less time, and you can make it as, like, you know, like a second source of income, try it a bit, see how things go, and then why not, like, give it a try, see like what is your return on, like your return on investments, and it can really be beneficial to you in the coming years. Peter, one question comes in my mind. Financial stability. In today's world, we hit a pandemic, and many people were relying on their savings. Many people sold their houses, and they make lots of money, like millions just by selling houses. Why do you think financial stability and having multiple sources of income is like important in today's world?
Well, it's just like basic human needs are required, right? So at the end of the day, you need shelter, you need warmth, you need food, you need water, you need clothing, some kind of basic comforts in life. So these are the things why you need to be able to have some kind of cash flow generated, right? So, and the more multiple streams of income you could create in your life, the more comfort you could create. And once you have your basic comforts there, now it's what are you looking to achieve in life, right? If you're just looking for the very basics, you could go live, you could probably work these days a couple of years in your life somewhere hard in, like, let's say, in a first world country, or even in a third world country. You work for 10, 15 years, save up, buy what do they call them, a solar generating thing for electricity, move out to the woods, learn how to farm. Like, if your goal is the basic things, right? But if your goal is to do more in life, experience more, and even give more, right? Like, while when the world is more fair and more logical and we all can interact with each other, then yeah, maybe those are the kind of goals that most humans will have. Like someone like me, I want to be able to travel to different places and remote villages where the infrastructure is not in place. And now someone like me just going there for a matter of a few days, a few weeks, could implement financial infrastructure that didn't exist in this community, an awareness and possibilities. The kids and their parents and their kids to come are going to start thinking differently about life. Now, instead of just being a soccer player and looking up to just the few amount of soccer players, we're going to have more and more leaders around the world that are doing good, living their best lives, expressing that, and they're just normal people. And now when kids start looking up to that, because they'll see them in their neighborhood, right? Right now, for me just to visit and drop off food one time is great. That's not going to be memorable for that child the rest of his life. But if you come set up an infrastructure and the rest of the kid's life, they have access to now banking, learning graphic designing or coding or expressing themselves digitally in so many ways to come, it's going to open the average mind that, you know what, they can do more than just whatever their family has done or whatever their region limits are. They can create something. Like kids right now could create currencies for the first time in their brain. Yes, maybe 99.999% will always be worth zero, but the fact that the kid could think about, hey, I could create this cryptocurrency based on an idea, and if I do X, Y, and Z, there's a possibility I build a new economy on the planet. That didn't exist when I was a child. I couldn't even conceive the concept of something like that. So now the new generation coming up is going to think much bigger than we ever even thought we could imagine, because you just have the restrictions around you, don't know any different. Now with the digital possibilities, with the metaverse coming, meaning the digital realities, people are going to be able to build any kind of business, career, anything they choose from anywhere in the world with no limitations. And this is why this technology is so exciting, beyond just the investment side of it going up or down.
Whoa! I took some notes while Peter was speaking, and I'm going to read those out to you. So the very praiseworthy points of cryptocurrency is: number one, the portability; number two, the divisibility; number three, the inflation resistance and the transparency. Correct, Peter?
100%.
And the criticism. See, I'm a good one. I do take notes as you were speaking, so that at the end you all can also learn and implement that. It is illegal activities. That's what you said. Exchange rate volatility, vulnerabilities, infrastructure. Vulnerable. A currency can be vulnerable, eh? Wow.
It's been like, imagine electricity's only applied to very basic things, right? Now we have electricity powering vehicles, smart devices. So when you think about electricity in the early 1900s or whenever we invented it, it was very limited. It just did lights. Now much good. Same with this time. We've never had a currency. The currencies we used before were very limited. You knew you could interact with them in these basic ways and nothing else.
Yeah.
There's very little creativity you could add. So to actually have a way to interact, think of it as like a currency for the internet from the internet, right? So it's cool like how much creativity we've built on the World Wide Web so far, to know that now there's a new evolution coming that's going to offer even more possibilities than the original internet did. So for anyone that's thought they missed the wave with not building an online business in time, jump in and learn about this new technology of cryptocurrency, of Bitcoin. Start learning these terminologies. If I'm talking alien to you, just do more research. So decentralized finance, we call it DeFi. This is taking over the world. We have NFTs, non-fungible tokens, meaning it's one-of-one digital rarity. So you could create art, and there's been digital art galleries and then shows around the world. And there's been art sold, for some cases, millions, tens of millions of dollars. That's pixelated digital rarity. Now people are talking this new word metaverse, which is a digital reality. Like all these are opportunities. In 9 months, 18 months from now, there'll be a new trend in this technology. So it's exciting to be part of something that's always changing and adapting, and it's adapting to what people are asking for. It's not someone making a decision. It's all of us humans cumulatively deciding to use the technology and taking it where we want to.
I am already excited and ready to evolve with the change, because the change is the only thing which is inevitable. Peter, what Peter is doing, he is making a documentary. And the documentary is, I don't know whether I'm going to be in it, but it is Tell Your Story on Bitcoin. What's that, Peter?
So if you look at most documentaries out on the market right now, there's about like 10, 20 really good ones, but they all say a similar message. They break down like what is Bitcoin, what is mining, some of the things we talked about today, and they give you more graphics. They go into more details about like some possibilities. But once you've watched one or two of them, unless you switch to a podcast or like a radio show, or you go a different direction for your content, there's not much professional documentaries made that actually tell the story beyond the basics. So some people are open and listen to all forms of content, but there's some people that still only watch mainstream. So if it doesn't make it to a streaming platform, if it doesn't make it somewhere where they're comfortable with, they're not going to watch it. But sometimes they want more content. So we're making a crypto docu-series. It's going to be a few episodes, like the first one focused on just a little bit of my backstory and the history of crypto. We'll get to the history of Ethereum on another one. We'll get to other trends, things of that nature. But the point of it is that someone that's already done the basic research, let's say somebody's watched this show today, they took interest and they watched one Bitcoin documentary or two.
I did too. Before coming here.
This is what we're making this film project for. We're assuming you know the basics, and now you have people that lived off this lifestyle for several years, 5, 10 years in some cases, and people telling their stories of amazing gains, amazing losses, experiences, traveling with people, interacting, and actual day-to-day how it feels to live the crypto life. And that's why the documentary is called Crypto Life.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to end our show. Peter, any last message for our audience out there? It was an amazing conversation. I'm actually very impressed by his knowledge. My God, so much content.
Yeah, and I have Peter's quote from his profile. It says, living a free lifestyle with no restrictions, without infringing on anyone or anything. No restrictions, a life with no restrictions. How's that possible, Peter?
Well, I live by my own philosophy, so I think if I could do anything I want, as long as I'm not harming people, the planet, nothing like that. So if I'm doing just makes me happy and is not having any negative consequences to anybody else, that's a perfect life.
Not infringing on anybody.
If everybody else lived like that, we would have a pretty happy planet of people just living their best lives. So I want to say thank you for having me on the show again. It's been great.
Lovely.
People take action. Don't be scared. My information will be out there. My name is on the screen the whole time. You could go to my .com. You could also, that's my email as well. My phone number is on my website. Don't be scared to reach out to me. As long as you have an interesting question, I'll spend lots of time with you on the phone. If I could tell you haven't done your research, we can still talk for a minute and I'll tell you, hey, go do more research, call me back, right? So the point is take action. Don't be scared. This is something that's not going away. Most companies, businesses, all entrepreneurs will be using this technology one way or another in the coming 5, 10 years.
Definitely.
If you don't take action, it's fine. Eventually you will have no choice and you will. But if you want to take and get ahead, take action now. Learn about the technology now and just enjoy your life.
Yay! So maintain positivity. Keep positive at all times. That's what Peter says. Thank you very much, Peter. for being in our show. It was pleasure. It was educated. We learned, and I got excited as well. I just want to go home and find out what that Bitcoin is and start investing. Everybody, hope this show was beneficial. Peter comes from downtown Toronto. He's just here to educate us and that help out there. If anybody needs to learn on that, Peter Ratnikov. His number would be sliding down below, or you can call us at inbox and we're going to share it with you. Yes, Rida, and thank you, Peter.
Yes, thank you.
As someone says, I will leave you with two things. Keep a smile on, and grow your network. We'll see you next time with a brand new show with a brand new guest. Till that time, keep watching Live with KacyCExcel. Thank you.
Thank you.